It's time for you to stop hating on PHP. I'm going to show you how to code a simple web API in PHP in 5 minutes. So PHP gets a bad rap, but PHP is pretty fast. It's flexible. It's a powerful server-side scripting language that you can code in very quickly to do server-side logic. It's one of my favorite ways to quickly build web API endpoints without a bunch of setup and without a bunch of overhead. So let's jump into it. The first thing you want to do in your PHP script, your PHP endpoint, is set the response headers for the endpoint. So here I'm going to set the access control headers, and I'm also going to set what type of content type I want to be returned from this endpoint, which is JSON in this case. So the next thing you want to do is be able to retrieve a query string argument from the request. And what I want to do is retrieve this appointment ID argument using the built-in get object that PHP has in it. After that, I want to set up a custom response object, which is going to be an array in PHP, but it's going to eventually get converted to JSON and be returned. And I'm going to start off this object with a success equals true. After that, I want to do some sort of work. So here I'm going to connect to my database, and I'm actually going to run a query where I'm going to select from appointments where the appointment ID is whatever I passed in on the query string argument with the appointment ID. And I'm going to stop here for a minute and see if anybody understands what security issue that I've introduced right here. If you can guess it out, you get some brownie points. So after that, the final step is to use this JSON encode built-in PHP function in order to convert the request into a JSON string. And then down here is an example of what this string looks like when it's returned back to the browser or to whatever service you called. So what are some pros of PHP? It can be very low overhead to script and deploy PHP, as PHP is running on a lot of shared hosting platforms like GoDaddy, for instance. And it's very easy to set up the environment on your local machine or on a server. It's flexible. You can adapt it quickly. Like I said, it's a scripting language. Doesn't have a lot of framework overhead unless you choose to add a framework. It's easy to learn and understand, easy to test, and it's pretty much free of cost and cheap to develop with. The cons are it's not scalable. Once you create a really large API, you may need to use a framework, but there can be issues with scaling PHP as a language. So it's better for smaller scripting things. But I've seen where big companies have been able to use it, but to each his own. And then another con is language has inconsistencies, which, like I said, can lead to some confusing code if you're not careful with what you're doing. And I hope you found this interesting. I just want to know your general opinions on this quick API and on PHP in general.